3 minutes after dessert. The words drifted across the candlelit dining room so softly that no one else seemed to notice them, swallowed beneath the sound of violin music and expensive laughter, but the moment Amara Brooks heard that sentence in Serbian, every muscle in her body locked in place. The silver tray nearly slipped from her hands as she stood beside table 12, the stem of a crystal wine glass trembling against polished steel. Her pulse turned uneven. Cold. Sharp. Familiar. Because 6 months earlier, her younger brother had whispered those exact same words into a shaking voice memo just hours before federal agents found his apartment torn apart and his files missing. 3 minutes after dessert. That phrase wasn't casual conversation. It was timing. Coordination. A countdown. Amara forced herself to keep walking through Bella Rosa, the most exclusive Italian restaurant in Lower Manhattan, where senators, celebrities, hedge fund billionaires, and men rumored to own entire shipping ports dined beneath imported chandeliers and hand-painted ceilings. The restaurant smelled like garlic butter, old money, and secrets expensive enough to bury people over. Normally, she stayed invisible here. That was the rule. Smile politely. Pour wine carefully. Never stare too long at the men with bodyguards. Never ask why private rooms needed soundproof walls. And absolutely never listen to conversations that weren't meant for her ears. But tonight, invisibility suddenly felt impossible. Amara adjusted the black sleeve of her uniform and glanced toward the private center table beneath the amber chandelier. Vincent Moretti sat there like he owned gravity itself. White skin untouched by stress, dark tailored suit fitted perfectly across broad shoulders, silver watch glinting beneath warm light, every movement calm enough to make everyone around him nervous. He wasn't loud. Men like Vincent Moretti never needed to be. The entire room bent around his silence. Investors leaned closer when he spoke. Waiters straightened when he glanced their way. Even the restaurant manager kept wiping imaginary dust from the podium whenever Moretti looked up from his drink. Rumor said he controlled half the ports on the East Coast. Rumor also said judges answered his phone calls before their own families. Amara believed both. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration dinner. Moretti had arrived with politicians, executives, and a stunning blonde fiancée whose diamond bracelet caught the candlelight every time she lifted her champagne glass. To everyone else, it looked glamorous. Untouchable. But Amara noticed things people ignored. The man near the bar wearing an earpiece who never touched his whiskey. The couple by the window pretending to flirt while scanning exits in the reflection of the glass. The nervous busboy she'd never seen before gripping a folded red napkin too tightly. And then there was the Serbian phrase again. 3 minutes after dessert. Her stomach tightened. She remembered sitting in a hospital hallway while detectives avoided eye contact after her brother Marcus died. Marcus Brooks. FBI cybercrime analyst. 28 years old. Smart enough to speak 4 languages. Careful enough to know when people were lying. Dead before anyone could protect him. Amara had spent months trying to forget the coded phrases he used to scribble into notebooks late at night. But now those same phrases were floating through Bella Rosa like ghosts returning unfinished. A waiter brushed past her carrying tiramisu toward Vincent Moretti's table. Dessert. 2 minutes left. Amara's fingers tightened around the tray until her knuckles ached. She looked toward Vincent again just as he casually adjusted his cufflinks, completely unaware that half the room had quietly stopped eating to watch him. The violinists continued playing near the staircase. Glasses clinked softly. Candlelight flickered against marble columns. Everything looked beautiful. Everything felt wrong. Then Amara noticed the reflection. Just for half a second inside the mirrored wine bucket beside Moretti's chair. Metal. Long and dark beneath a coat sleeve. Someone near the back entrance slowly reaching forward. Her breath caught instantly. She had 3 seconds to decide whether Vincent Moretti lived or died. Amara Brooks had learned a long time ago that fear made people loud, but Danger made them quiet. That was why the silence inside Bella Rosa suddenly felt heavier than the marble walls surrounding her. The wealthy guests kept smiling beneath the chandelier light, forks brushed gently against porcelain plates, and waiters moved between tables carrying wine worth more than most people paid for rent in a month, yet beneath all that elegance, something poisonous had settled into the room. Amara could feel it in her chest the same way sailors probably felt storms before the clouds rolled in. She lowered her tray slowly and forced herself toward the kitchen doors without drawing attention. Her breathing stayed controlled, but her thoughts did not. Marcus used to say coded operations always looked ordinary right before everything changed. If people panicked too early, he once told her while typing on 3 computer screens at once inside his tiny Brooklyn apartment, the plan fails. Back then, she did not understand what he meant. She understood now. Every person involved tonight was pretending not to notice each other. The man near the bar checked his watch exactly every 30 seconds. The fake busboy still held the folded red napkin. Even the violin players seemed strangely tense, their rhythm half a beat too rushed beneath the restaurant's golden glow. Amara slipped through the kitchen doors into the heat and noise of stainless steel counters, shouting cooks, and clouds of garlic butter rising from expensive pans. Normally the kitchen grounded her. It was predictable here. Loud. Honest. Food did not lie. Rich people did. Table 12 needs another bottle, Chef Luis barked without looking up from the stove. Amara barely heard him. Her mind stayed trapped on the mirrored reflection she had seen near Vincent Moretti's chair. Metal beneath a sleeve. Someone positioning carefully. Someone waiting. She grabbed the bottle automatically, fingers moving from muscle memory while panic curled tighter beneath her ribs. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe grief had broken something inside her after Marcus died. Maybe hearing Serbian again had made her paranoid. But then she remembered the police returning Marcus's belongings in a cardboard box that smelled like dust and rainwater. His watch. His cracked glasses. His phone wiped completely clean. No answers. No justice. Just silence. The official report called it a robbery gone wrong. Amara stopped believing that lie the moment she found coded Serbian phrases written inside his notebook margins. Her brother had been investigating organized networks tied to shipping routes and political laundering. He knew dangerous people. And now one of those same phrases had appeared inside a restaurant owned by one of the most powerful men in New York. That was not coincidence. A dishwasher brushed past her carrying steaming plates. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Amara blinked back to reality. "Fine," she lied automatically. But her hands betrayed her. The wine bottle trembled slightly as she dried the condensation with a white cloth. Across the kitchen, the television mounted above the prep station flashed financial headlines while cooks laughed over a baseball score. Nobody knew that somewhere beyond those swinging doors, invisible lines were tightening around a man's life. And Vincent Moretti had no idea. That disturbed her more than it should have. She hated what men like him represented. Men with private security and political connections while ordinary families buried people they loved. Men whose names survived scandals because power protected itself. Yet in the 3 months she had worked at Bella Rosa, Vincent Moretti had never once treated staff cruelly. He remembered servers' names. He tipped kitchen workers during holidays. Last winter, when a porter's daughter needed surgery, an envelope filled with cash appeared anonymously inside the manager's office the next morning. Everyone knew where it came from even though nobody dared say it aloud. Dangerous men were not supposed to do kind things. That contradiction unsettled her deeply. The kitchen doors swung open again and one of the floor managers hurried inside looking pale. "Dessert service now," he snapped. "Move." Amara's stomach dropped instantly. Dessert. The countdown was over. The dessert trays emerged from the kitchen beneath warm golden lights like nothing was wrong, like the night was still elegant and safe and ordinary. Chocolate mousse layered with shaved dark chocolate. Lemon mascarpone cake decorated with sugar glass. Tiny espresso cups balanced perfectly beside silver spoons. Around her, the other servers moved quickly through Bellarosa's crowded dining room while soft violin music floated through the air, but Amara Brooks felt detached from all of it now, as if she were watching someone else's life unfold from underwater. Her hearing sharpened strangely. She noticed every detail. The faint buzz of hidden earpieces. Ice shifting inside crystal tumblers. The quiet scrape of a chair near the back entrance. Fear had slowed time down to fragments. "Move, Amara," the floor manager hissed beside her. "Table 12 is waiting." She lifted the dessert tray automatically and stepped back into the dining room. Candlelight reflected against polished marble columns while expensive conversations continued uninterrupted. Nobody here understood they were sitting inside the final seconds before something terrible happened. Vincent Moretti remained at the center table, calm and unreadable, one arm resting loosely beside his untouched bourbon glass while his fiancée smiled at a story one of the investors was telling. He looked impossibly composed. Untouchable. That was what made powerful men dangerous. They started believing nothing could reach them. Amara walked slowly toward the table, her black heels silent against the floor. She tried to think logically. Warn him. How? If she accused the wrong people inside a room full of Moretti security, she could disappear before sunrise. Men like Vincent Moretti did not survive this long by trusting strangers. Especially not frightened waitresses hearing half-finished conversations. But then she saw the fake busboy again. He was standing near the hallway now instead of clearing tables. Wrong position. Wrong timing. And the folded red napkin was no longer in his hand. Her heartbeat stumbled hard against her ribs. The signal had already been given. 2 minutes ago she still had choices. Now she only had instinct. She approached Vincent's table carefully and lowered the dessert plate in front of him. Up close, he looked even more intimidating than he did from a distance. Sharp jawline. Calm dark eyes. The faint shadow of silver beginning at his temples despite being barely older than 40. There was no fear in his expression because he had not noticed the trap tightening around him. Amara's hands trembled slightly as she placed the spoon beside his plate. Vincent looked up at her then, finally really looking at her for the first time all evening. Not through her. At her. His eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "You okay?" he asked quietly. The question stunned her. Men like him were supposed to command rooms, not notice exhausted waitresses struggling to breathe. Amara opened her mouth but nothing came out. Around them, the violinists continued playing near the staircase while candle flames flickered softly against crystal glasses. Beautiful. Calm. False. Then she heard it. 3 quick taps against glass near the rear corridor. A signal. Marcus used to do that exact pattern against the kitchen counter whenever he was nervous during investigations. 3 taps meant move now. Amara's blood ran cold instantly. She looked toward the mirrored wall beside the wine display and caught another reflection. A man lifting his arm beneath a dark coat. Slow. Controlled. Deliberate. The world narrowed into one impossible choice. Vincent followed her gaze slightly, confusion touching his expression for the first time. "Miss," he started quietly. But Amara was no longer listening. Every memory of Marcus flooded her chest at once. The funeral rain. Her mother crying alone in church pews. The detectives refusing eye contact. The unbearable silence afterward. Nobody moved fast enough to save him. Nobody warned him in time. Not again. Amara grabbed the heavy silver dessert tray with both hands and turned sharply toward the chandelier above Vincent Moretti's table. The silver tray left Amara's hands before fear could stop her. It slammed upward into the massive chandelier hanging above Vincent Moretti's table with a crack sharp enough to silence the violin music instantly. Crystal exploded across the ceiling in a burst of glittering light as the chandelier swung violently sideways. Gasps rippled through Bella Rosa. Several guests screamed. The room plunged into sudden darkness except for scattered emergency wall lights glowing dim red along the exits. For one disorienting second, nobody understood what had happened. Then chaos swallowed the restaurant whole. Chairs scraped violently across marble floors. Glass shattered somewhere near the bar. A woman cried out near the staircase while security men reached beneath jackets and started shouting over one another. Amara did not wait to think. The moment the lights failed, she lunged across Vincent Moretti's table and slammed into him hard enough to knock both of them sideways against the leather booth. A deafening crack echoed through the darkness a fraction later, followed by the violent burst of splintered wood from the wall directly behind where Vincent's head had been seconds earlier. The entire room froze. Even through the panic, people understood what that sound meant. This was no robbery. Someone had come specifically for Vincent Moretti. Another shout erupted near the entrance. Moretti's security team moved instantly, fast and coordinated despite the darkness. Men in dark suits surrounded the center section while guests dropped beneath tables and servers stumbled toward the kitchen in terror. Emergency lights flickered weakly against clouds of dust drifting from the damaged ceiling. Through all of it, Amara remained pressed against Vincent, breathing hard, one hand gripping his jacket tightly without realizing it. His body had gone perfectly still beneath hers. Calm. Controlled. Dangerous. She pushed herself upright immediately, horror flooding her chest as reality crashed down around her. She had just tackled one of the most feared men in New York in front of half the city's elite. "I am sorry," she started breathlessly. "I just saw." Vincent grabbed her wrist before she could finish. Not violently. Precisely. His dark eyes locked onto hers through the dim red emergency lighting, and for the first time since she met him, she saw something crack beneath his composure. Not fear exactly. Recognition. He understood now. "Down," he ordered quietly. The command came 1 second before another sharp impact shattered bottles. Behind the bar area. Moretti's bodyguards immediately closed ranks around the table while guests scrambled toward exits in confusion. Someone near the kitchen shouted for police. Someone else yelled that the back doors were blocked. Bella Rosa no longer looked elegant. It looked exposed. Fragile. The beautiful illusion had collapsed in less than 30 seconds. Vincent rose carefully from the booth without releasing Amara's wrist. Around him, his security team moved with military precision, scanning exits and shielding nearby civilians away from windows. One guard leaned toward Vincent urgently. "Vehicle is not safe," he said low enough that only nearby people could hear. "Secondary route now." Vincent nodded once, but his attention returned immediately to Amara. She could feel his gaze studying her face with unsettling intensity, as though trying to understand how a waitress noticed danger before trained security did. Her pulse hammered painfully inside her throat. "How did you know?" he asked quietly. Amara opened her mouth, but another sound interrupted her. 3 fast knocks against metal from somewhere near the rear hallway. The exact same coded rhythm. Her blood turned cold again instantly. "There is another team," she whispered. Vincent's expression changed immediately. The room around them blurred into noise and movement, but his eyes remained fixed entirely on hers now. Sharp. Measuring. Listening. For the first time all night, Vincent Moretti looked at Amara Brooks not like staff, not like background, but like someone standing inside the same storm beside him. One of the bodyguards stepped forward urgently. "Boss, we have to move now." Vincent did not look away from Amara when he answered. "She comes with us." The room went silent around her. Amara barely had time to process Vincent Moretti's words before one of the bodyguards pulled open a hidden steel door near the wine cellar hallway. Guests were still screaming behind them inside Bella Rosa, trapped between confusion and panic while emergency lights flickered red across broken glass and overturned tables. Somewhere in the distance, sirens had begun echoing through Manhattan traffic, faint but growing. Louder by the second. Vincent's security team moved quickly around him, creating a wall of dark suits and controlled urgency as they pushed through the narrow service corridor beneath the restaurant. Amara stumbled once in her black heels and caught herself against the cold brick wall. Her breathing refused to steady. Everything had happened too fast. 30 minutes ago she had been serving dessert beneath chandeliers. Now she was running through hidden tunnels beside one of the most dangerous men in New York while armed guards scanned every shadow like war might break loose at any second. One of the men ahead spoke urgently into an earpiece. "Rear alley compromised." Another answered immediately. "Use underground route." Vincent walked at the center of the formation with terrifying calm, one hand still holding Amara's wrist firmly enough to guide her without slowing down. Even now, with danger closing around him, his movements remained precise and controlled. That unsettled her almost more than the chaos upstairs. Most people panicked when death came close. Vincent Moretti became quieter. Sharper. More dangerous. They descended a concrete stairwell lit by dim yellow utility lights that buzzed overhead. The air smelled like rainwater and old metal. Somewhere above them, the city continued as normal. Taxi horns. Music. Crowds spilling out of bars. Millions of people completely unaware that beneath their feet, powerful men were moving through hidden corridors built for emergencies nobody publicly admitted existed. "Stop," Amara whispered suddenly. The word escaped before she could second-guess herself. The entire group froze instantly. Several guards turned toward her with visible suspicion. Vincent looked back over his shoulder slowly. "What?" he asked. Amara listened carefully. Her pulse hammered painfully inside her ears, but beneath it she heard something else. A faint metallic vibration echoing from the tunnel ahead. Not footsteps. Something electrical. Marcus used to teach her how surveillance equipment sounded when hidden behind walls during his investigations. Tiny frequencies. Rhythmic hums. "There is someone waiting ahead," she whispered. One of the guards frowned immediately. "How would you know that?" Amara ignored him. "Listen." The corridor fell silent. After several tense seconds, Vincent's expression shifted almost invisibly. He heard it too now. A low mechanical clicking somewhere beyond the next corner. One bodyguard moved forward cautiously before suddenly stopping. "Wire," he said sharply. The men exchanged dark looks immediately. Vincent slowly turned toward Amara again, and for the first time since Bella Rosa descended into chaos, genuine surprise flickered across his face. Not because she was frightened. Because she was right. "Take the maintenance route," Vincent ordered calmly. The guards obeyed instantly, redirecting the group through a narrow steel door hidden behind storage shelves. Amara followed closely, her hands shaking harder now from adrenaline and exhaustion. She could feel the weight of suspicious eyes on her from the security team. To them, she was still just a waitress who somehow understood coded phrases and hidden traps better than trained professionals. One wrong move and they would start wondering whether she was part of the setup herself. The thought tightened painfully inside her chest. Vincent must have sensed it because his voice suddenly cut through the silence beside her. "Nobody touches her," he said coldly without looking at his men. The corridor went still. No one argued. Amara stared at him in disbelief. He did not know her. He did not know whether she could be trusted. Yet he had just protected her with the same authority that controlled everyone around him. A few minutes later, the group finally entered a reinforced underground garage beneath an abandoned textile warehouse several blocks from Bella Rosa. Black SUVs waited with engines running beneath fluorescent lights. Rain hammered softly against the loading dock outside while steam curled upward from wet pavement. Vincent stopped beside the nearest vehicle and looked directly at Amara again. The silence between them felt heavier now. More personal somehow. "Who taught you to recognize operational signals?" he asked quietly. Amara's throat tightened instantly. For a moment, she considered lying. But Marcus's face rose in her memory again beneath cold funeral rain. "My brother," she answered softly. "Before they killed him." Vincent Moretti did not blink. The entire garage fell silent around them. Rain rolled down the warehouse windows in long silver streaks while silence settled heavily across the underground garage. Nobody moved after Amara mentioned her brother. The security team exchanged cautious looks beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, their hands still close to concealed weapons, their expressions unreadable. Vincent Moretti stood a few feet away from her beside the black SUV, one hand resting loosely against the open passenger door while steam curled upward from the wet concrete outside. The city sounded distant here. Muted. Like the entire world had stepped back to watch what happened next. "What was his name?" Vincent asked quietly. Amara swallowed hard. She had spent 6 months avoiding that question because hearing Marcus spoken aloud made his death feel fresh all over again. "Marcus Brooks," she answered softly. "Federal Cybercrime Division." Several guards stiffened almost immediately. One muttered something under his breath. Vincent remained perfectly still. "I know the name," he said after a long pause. Amara looked up sharply. That surprised her more than anything else tonight. Marcus had died quietly. No headlines. No public investigation. Just another buried case inside a city drowning in corruption and secrets. "Then you know they lied about what happened to him," she said before fear could stop her. Vincent studied her face carefully. Rainwater dripped steadily somewhere deeper in the garage, the sound echoing softly through the concrete space. "Yes," he answered at last. The single word hit harder than she expected. For months, everyone around her had treated Marcus's death like an unfortunate accident best forgotten. Detectives stopped returning calls. Friends became uncomfortable whenever she mentioned his investigation. Even her mother stopped asking questions because grief had exhausted her beyond anger. But now this man, this feared and untouchable man standing beneath fluorescent warehouse lights, had confirmed what she already knew in her heart. Marcus had not died randomly. He had gotten too close to something dangerous. Vincent opened the SUV door fully and gestured toward the interior. "Get inside." Amara hesitated immediately. Every survival instinct she had developed since Marcus died screamed at her not to trust powerful men offering protection. Especially men whispered about in courtrooms and political offices. Vincent noticed her hesitation instantly. "If the people who plan tonight realize you recognize their signals," he said calmly, "you will not be safe alone." The terrifying part was not the threat in his voice. It was the honesty. He was not trying to frighten her. He was stating facts. One of the guards stepped closer. "Boss, police scanners already picked up movement around Bella Rosa. We should relocate now." Vincent nodded once before looking back at Amara again. "You can walk away if you want," he said quietly. "But they already saw your face." The garage fell silent again. Amara looked down at her trembling hands. Her black waitress uniform was stained with dust from the restaurant floor, one sleeve torn slightly from the chaos upstairs. Just hours ago, she had been worrying about overdue electric bills and whether her mother's medication would last until payday. Now she stood between organized killers and a man powerful enough to move entire security teams with one sentence. Her old life already felt distant somehow. Unreal. Slowly, she climbed into the SUV. The leather seats smelled faintly of cedar and expensive cologne. Vincent entered beside her moments later while the security convoy prepared outside. As the vehicle pulled away from the warehouse and disappeared into rain-soaked Manhattan streets, Amara stared silently through the tinted window at blurred neon lights sliding across the glass. Vincent remained beside her, calm and unreadable, one hand resting near his phone while messages lit up the screen every few seconds. Orders. Updates. Damage control. The machinery of power already moving. After several quiet minutes, Vincent finally spoke again without looking at her. Marcus Brooks was investigating a financial network connected to Eastern European shipping routes, he said softly. Amara's breath caught instantly. How do you know that? Vincent turned toward her slowly. The passing streetlights painted sharp shadows across his face, making him look colder somehow. More dangerous. Because, he answered quietly, the same people who killed your brother came for me tonight. The city lights blurred outside as Amara realized her nightmare had just become much bigger than one restaurant. The convoy crossed Manhattan like a moving shadow beneath sheets of cold rain. Black SUVs glided through wet midnight streets while reflections of neon signs rippled across the windows in fractured colors of blue and gold. Inside the vehicle, silence pressed heavily between Amara Brooks and Vincent Moretti. The city outside looked alive as always. Couples hurried beneath umbrellas. Food carts still smoked beneath streetlights. Taxis splashed through puddles while music drifted from crowded bars. Nobody realized that somewhere among them, invisible wars were unfolding behind tinted glass and locked doors. Amara sat stiffly against the leather seat, her fingers tightly twisted together in her lap. Vincent's words kept replaying inside her head. The same people who killed your brother came for me tonight. She wanted to ask 100 questions, but fear kept tangling around her thoughts. The answers might finally explain Marcus's death. They might also destroy whatever remained of her ordinary life forever. Vincent remained focused on the phone in his hand while quiet conversations passed through his earpiece every few minutes. His voice never rose. He gave instructions calmly, almost gently, which somehow made his authority feel even more absolute. No press statements yet. Pause. Lock every financial transfer connected to Bellarosa staff. Another pause. And find out who leaked the seating chart. Amara glanced toward him carefully. There was no panic in his face. No visible anger. Only concentration cold enough to make the air inside the SUV feel sharper. Powerful men in movies always shouted when betrayed. Vincent Moretti became quieter instead. That frightened her more. 30 minutes later, the convoy finally entered a private underground entrance beneath a towering building overlooking the Hudson River. Instinctively. I should leave, she whispered. Vincent turned toward her slowly. You think they will let you? The honesty in his voice stopped her cold again. He walked toward the windows overlooking the rain-covered skyline, hands resting loosely in his pockets. For a long moment he simply stared at the city below. Powerful. Silent. Untouchable. But now Amara noticed something she had missed before. Exhaustion. It lived quietly in the lines around his eyes. In the way his shoulders lowered slightly when nobody else was watching. Marcus Brooks was close to exposing a laundering network connected to Eastern European shipping channels, Vincent said without turning around. Someone inside my organization was helping them. Amara's chest tightened painfully. And now? Vincent finally looked back at her, his dark eyes colder than the storm outside. Now, he said softly, I need to know who betrayed me before they try again. Storm clouds swallowed Manhattan while rain streaked across the penthouse windows of Vincent Moretti's private office, where glowing monitors displayed financial records, convoy routes, and surveillance feeds from Bellarosa. Wrapped in a blanket over her waitress uniform, Amara Brooks sat silently watching Vincent command the room with terrifying calm while advisors revealed someone inside his empire had leaked private operations for months. Offshore accounts, missing security footage, corrupted managers, and finally one name that froze the entire room, Elena Devereux, Vincent's fiancée. Vincent barely reacted, but the silence that followed felt more dangerous than rage. Freeze every account connected to the leak, he ordered softly. Shut down Jersey. Find the manager. No shouting. No threats. Just cold certainty. When one advisor cautiously asked how much Amara knew, Vincent answered without hesitation. Enough to save my life twice tonight. Nobody questioned her again. After the meeting ended, Vincent admitted the conspiracy reached deeper than he realized and quietly warned her that the people hunting him now considered her part of the war too. 3 days later, Manhattan pretended nothing happened. News stations blamed Belarus's chaos on an electrical accident while evidence disappeared behind wealth and influence. But Amara's life had already changed. Strange SUVs lingered near her apartment. Unknown calls ended after one ring. Fear followed her home every night. Then one morning she returned to find her apartment door open and her mother crying at the kitchen table across from Vincent Moretti himself. Mortgage paid. Hospital debts erased. Every burden crushing their family since Marcus died had vanished overnight. Why? Amara whispered. Vincent held her gaze calmly. Because your brother died exposing dangerous people, he said softly. Then he placed a black envelope on the table, a job offer. Amara reminded him she was only a waitress, but Vincent almost smiled for the first time. No, he replied quietly. You are someone who saw what trained security teams missed. As he left, he paused at the doorway. You can refuse, he said. But the people who killed your brother already know your name. The difference now, is that they know I do too.